unfortunately. Pardon that interruption. I'm General George Washington, leader of the Continental Army and the reason colonies were led to freedom. Alongside many others, we made it to the Battle of Yorktown, our final showcase of independence. Here are the exact details on how our final battle went down. I was born on February 22nd, 1732. I represented Virginia in the First Continental Congress and was chosen to command the Continental Army. In the beginning of the war, our army was losing. But under my leadership, my soldiers became more confident, and we won in New Jersey through a sneak attack in Trenton. This victory marked a turning point in the war. Now the winning streak was on our side. Later, we were preparing for the Battle of Yorktown, and in a couple days' time, we were ready to fight. We were hoping for some help from France, but we didn't know if they were going to come through in time. All of a sudden, several boats popped up in the Chesapeake Bay. The French had arrived! We knew we were going to win. We knew this was possible because the French had just defeated the British Navy. After long weeks of fighting, on October 19th, General Cornwallis had to surrender because we had him and his men surrounded. Some of the French Navy was placed in the Chesapeake Bay, so it was impossible for the British to try and escape using the water. The rest of the French forces helped us surround the British on the ground. Cornwallis was outnumbered 2 to 1. General Cornwallis tried to send help before getting to this point. He sent a letter to the Commander-in-Chief, Sir Henry Clinton. However, Clinton was too busy entertaining King George's son, so he never responded. A white handkerchief waved in the sky. The time had come for him to give up. Cornwallis's men were tired and hungry. You may think this is where the story ends, but it's not over yet. General Cornwallis was too embarrassed to surrender to me, so he sent his second-in-command to a French commander. Ugh, so offensive. Even though that French commander had pointed the officer to me. I pointed him to my second-in-command. If General Cornwallis wasn't going to be professional enough to surrender to me himself, then I wouldn't accept it from anyone else. Everyone was filled with joy, and we were finally free and could make our own decisions again. Wait, we have to make a lot of decisions about our new country and government. I quieted down my men and said, history will remember us and make us sound louder than all the men the world could have. My experience as a general was very nerve-wracking, especially because America's freedom depended on it. Now the time has come where I ride Nelson back to Mount Vernon to be with my wife Martha and my precious kids. I'm excited to hang out with the boys Lafayette and Hamilton. To be honest, I've never been on a longer business trip.
Good morning, Patriots. I'm James Forten. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a free African American. I'm going to talk about my journey as a prisoner on a British battleship. Yes, it really happened. I'm best known for my capture during a battle with the British. I believed in freedom of the colonies, so I left home to serve in the Navy. My job was to bring gunpowder to the cannons on my ship called the Royal Louis. During the battle, we got captured by a British battleship called the Amphion because it was too powerful and we were forced to surrender. All the Americans were taken as prisoners onto the British ship. I started to become friends with the captain's son because we would explore the ship together and play marbles together. We all know who won those games. Soon after, the captain offered me to stay with him and his family in London because of my sparkling personality, of course. But I said no, because I would never betray my country like that. Once we got moved on to a different prison ship, I found a very sick person named Daniel. Later, I had the opportunity to escape by hiding in a wooden chest. But I knew if Daniel didn't get off the ship, he would die. Poor Daniel. So I let him go instead. Almost after 7 months, we were finally freed in New York. Thank goodness. Once we docked at New York Harbor, I walked from New York to Philadelphia, eager to see my mom again. Overall, America was way better off with me because I fought for America and seemed to sick me from dying. After the war, I returned to my sailmaking business and invented a device that made me very wealthy. This allowed me to focus on what I believed in, freeing enslaved people. I helped pay for the anti-slavery newspaper known as The Liberator. I was so important and loved that more than 3,000 people came to my funeral. Farewell, I'm off to my sailmaking business.
Good morning, Patriots. I'll need to send my children soon, so I'll try to be quick. I'm Deborah Sampson, and I stuck into the army even though girls like me weren't allowed. I'm not proud that I got caught, but when I did, I confessed the truth. I'll tell you the story of how my secret was discovered. Before I was discovered, I had extreme measures to hide my identity. One time, I even pulled a bullet out of my leg so as not to get discovered. This happened when we were fighting loyalists, and I got shot twice, the leg and the neck. I didn't want to go to the hospital for fear of being found out, so I took the bullet out myself. Then the army moved to Philadelphia, but there was a viral outbreak, and I got sick with a very high fever and fell into a coma. While I was in a coma, I was moved to the hospital. There, Dr. Minnie discovered my secret but didn't tell anyone. Ugh, why do bad things have to keep happening to me? With the secret still between me and Dr. Binney, General Patterson chose me to be one of his personal assistants. I was given fresh supplies and was able to bathe in private. Finally, in early October, Dr. Binney sent a letter to General Patterson stating that I was ill, so I had to confess. General Patterson told all my friends, and soon the word spread and I became famous. I fought many battles and may have lost those battles without my effort. I showed that girls can do anything that boys can. Overall, I was a crucial part in the Revolutionary War. Farewell, I'm off to take care of my children.
I'm here to talk to you about my Wright Lexington, famously known as Parker's Ride. It took place on April 18th, 1775. Let me introduce myself. I am Paul Revere. I grew in Boston, Massachusetts. I put my life at risk for my fellow Sons of Liberty, Samuel Adams, and John Hancock. And because of me, they were able to escape arrest by the British. Before that happened, I went to Old North Church and put lanterns to warn my fellow patriots how the British were coming. I would put one lantern if they were marching my land, 2 lanterns if they were coming by sea. So if it wasn't for me, the people of Lexington would not know how the British would be coming. That night, I put 2 lanterns in the top of the church, signaling that the British were coming by sea. After that, I set out on my horse to warn the colonists to prepare for battle. Along my ride, I was stopped by 12 British officers who threatened to blow my brains out. But don't be worried, they didn't. I'm still here, aren't I? However, I didn't get away as easy as I wanted to. They took the horse I was running on, Brown Beauty, and unfortunately I never saw her again. So after that, I went on foot to Concord. Even though I didn't get to warn the people of Concord myself, I did some amazing things along the way. And I was only a silversmith. While I was saving America, my wife was home with our 16 kids. I'm not sure who had the harder job. If it wasn't for me, John Hancock would be counting his money in jail, and Sam Adams would be next to him. Then the British soldiers might have won the war, and America would be free from Great Britain. You have to admit it, I am pretty great. I'm off for a night with the boys. I mean, John and Sam for a poker game.
I'm Phillis Wheatley. I was just working on the poem I'm writing called Liberty and Peace. But now let me tell you a little about myself. My name, given by my parents, is unknown because I was kidnapped from my home in Africa at just 7 years old. After crossing the Atlantic by ship, I arrived in Boston. I received my name from the ship that brought me to America. The ship was called the Phillis, so when John and Susanna Wheatley bought me, they named me Phillis Wheatley. I have many stories I can tell you, but the one that sticks out in my mind the most is when I wrote a poem to General George Washington. I wrote the poem to him while I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the poem was titled, To His Excellency General Washington. My poem was recognized by many people and even published in the Pennsylvania Magazine. General George Washington replied to my poem in March of 1776. He even addressed me as Miss Phillis. It is believed that this was the first time George Washington addressed an African American as Miss. I was so happy when I got that reply because it showed General Washington acknowledged my writing abilities and recognized me in a way that was not typical in that time period. I probably still have that letter somewhere in the basement. I met General Washington in Cambridge. When I met him, I was filled with joy and happiness. I felt proud because I was the first African American and second woman in America to have my work published. This was one of the most memorable moments I had. Later on, I married John Peters, who was a businessman. Now I'm currently 31 years old. Overall, I made an indelible mark on American literature because I proved the intelligence of enslaved people and the importance of education for all. Farewell, I'm off to serve dinner to the Wheatleys.
Good morning, my fellow patriots. I am Nathan Hale, a revolutionary spy. I grew up in Connecticut with one brother. I believe no one should be under the crown because there are too many laws put into place by the king. Let me tell you about my story. Let's start this journey. I joined the local military because I was ready for battle. People were losing hope, but that didn't stop me. George Washington needed spies, and my commander said I was the only one up for the challenge. I guess the other guys didn't have the guts. My first mission was to go to Long Island to observe the British plans. However, I was too late to warn General George Washington. I was waiting on the dock for my ship to return, but a British ship came instead. The British called me a spying dog, but a lot of people got taken as spies because the British were looking for someone to blame for the New York City fire. I was taken to the British headquarters, and I got the chance to live longer because I convinced them I was honest. I was given the choice to live longer as a loyalist under British rule. However, I responded, never. No one should be under the crown. I only wish that I was allowed to write a last letter to my brother. Because of me, officers deserve a trial before being hanged. I made it harder for spies to get caught because after my death, George Washington started his secret spy ring known as the Culper Ring. This network was implemented to help protect future military spies. I gave George Washington a lot of information, but my journey is over. I only regret that I put one life to lose for my country.
Mom, the courier is here to mail the letter to Dad. Okay. Good morning, and sorry for all the yelling. I am Abigail Adams. I grew up in Weymouth, Massachusetts. I had 3 siblings, and my dad was a minister. Then, when I grew up, I married John Adams. After I moved to Boston in 1768, John, my husband, went to Pennsylvania to help fight the Revolutionary War through his involvement as a politician. I was so lonely without John that I wrote to him saying, "You can't imagine how we live." I was also scared because the Boston Massacre had just occurred right outside my house. John shared my letter with the Continental Congress so that they would know how harshly the British were treating the Bostonians. The Continental Congress didn't know how hard it was for the colonists, so my words helped them understand. Many of my letters to John told him how important women are and how vital it is that he uses his voice in the government for the better. I also believe that all girls deserved an education. I'm just so honored to be able to present a speech here at Marymount, a school that educates such fine young women. Because of me, the Continental Congress worked harder to break free from Britain, and it worked. I think my words were significant to the government. Without me, the Continental Congress would have never understood how violent Boston had become. Farewell, I'm off to mail my letter to John.
When people say that women should stay home, cook, take care, and clean, I don't agree, because women can also be strong. Oops, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Hello, I am Sybil Ludington. I am from Paterson, New York, and I showed people that even though I'm a lady, I can do anything that men do, but better.
Now please be quiet and listen to my heroic night. I was at home one night when someone knocked at the door. The messenger came in wet and tired. He really needed a nap. Anyways, he revealed that the British troops lit a fire in Danbury to burn colonial weapons and supplies. My father couldn't go to wake up his men because he had to stay to organize his troops when they arrived. The messenger couldn't go because he was too tired, so I volunteered to go. At first, my parents protested, but I convinced them to let me go. So I got on my horse and set off on my journey. It was cold, rainy, and especially tiring. At one point, I saw a house and a glowing orange light. I started yelling and waking people up. My ride was dangerous because I rode by some outlaws who could have stolen my horse. In the end, it was successful, and men marched off to meet the British army at the Battle of Ridgefield. I know that America was better off than me because I represented women and helped save a town. Because of me, 100 people were saved, and more women can go on journeys just like mine. I am proud of my accomplishments and happy to say I'm a hero. Remember when I said that women could do things better than men? Hey, Pa Revere, how many miles did you ride?
10.5.
Well, that night, I rode 40. Quick math tells me that's over 3 times as far as you. Good day.
Rocking and a rollin', swishing and a slashing over the horizon. What could it be? The Pilgrims sailed the seas and had a place to call their own. On their ship Mayflower, they hoped to find a better home. They finally knocked on Plymouth Rock, and someone said, "We're there." It may not look like much, but at this point I don't care.
iron of a king, King George. Hello, I'm Patrick Henry, and I'm one of the patriots who changed the colonists' minds and got them ready to fight. I grew up in Virginia and had 7 sisters and 2 brothers. A full house indeed. You can imagine how many fights there were. I believe in the Revolutionary War, and I will lead the colonists to our fight for freedom. Now let me tell you the story of how I got everyone galvanized for war. In March 1775, I hurried to the Second Virginia Convention, which brought leaders of the colonies together. This was the perfect time to urge war with Britain and get everyone prepared for it. Even though some agreed with me on the war, others still felt love and duty to the king and hoped to settle things peacefully. Then I felt the need to stand up for my country and convince the colonies to stand up for our freedom, so I said, there is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, we must fight. Some of the colonist leaders thought we were too weak to fight. Yeah, right, we won the French and Indian War. Well, maybe we had a little help from Britain. Anyway, I pressed on and said, I know not what courses others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. In the end, I got everyone ready for war. I knew that with justice at our side, we would win. Also, I'm one of the people who helped General George Washington prepare for war and train the army. I felt honored and proud to train the Continental Army with the general. I think America is better off as a country with freedom and fair laws, and I was the one who got everyone ready to fight for our freedom. I will forever remember that I was a big part of the revolution and how it felt to stand up for my country. Together, America will be a free country and maybe even grow. All I know is that we'll be better off without that tyrant King George. Good day, not good day. God bless America.
I am John Hancock, after all. I was one of the leaders of the Sons of Liberty and one of the richest men in the colonies at the time of the Revolution. Without me, the Sons of Liberty would be considered just a bunch of troublemakers. But I gave them class. Let's face it, me being part of the Revolution gave the whole movement class. It wasn't just a bunch of poor farmers and troublemakers causing trouble because they had nothing to lose. I was the richest man in America. I had it all to lose, and I put it on the line for freedom, for liberty, for my country. Yes, I was instrumental in the freedom of the colonies. Nowadays, I'm mainly remembered for my large signature in the Declaration of Independence. Let me give you some background on myself and that signature. As I mentioned, I was one of the leaders of the Sons of Liberty. My friend Sam Adams and I basically started at Goop. We really got the move towards independence rolling up in Boston. Ask King George about me. I was on his list of most dangerous Americans. I was his #1 enemy. Because I was hated by King George and so respected in the colonies, I was voted to be president of the Second Continental Congress. My fellow politicians wanted me to be the president because they wanted to show King George what they thought of him. Even though Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, I was the first to sign it. I signed with my large, beautiful, clear signature right in the middle. The reason why I signed it so big was I wanted to make sure King George could read it without his spectacles. Yes, I liked the attention that came with my large signature, but I also took a great risk signing my name first. If the colonies did not win the war, I'm sure King George would make me the first to die. My wife was not thrilled. Oh, and I had the most beautiful wife. I married Dorothy Quincy, the youngest and prettiest of the Quincy sisters. After the war, I should have been the first vice president of the United States, but somehow John Adams got it. Don't ask me how. Well, I went back to Massachusetts and I was elected governor 11 times. Undoubtedly, I'm one of the reasons we now enjoy the freedom that we have. May I always be remembered as the most popular and wealthiest politician with the most beautiful wife. May I always be remembered as a son of liberty, president of the Second Continental Congress, and a patriot who fought bravely for America. Good day and God bless America.
Oh, hi. I'm Mercy Otis Warren. I grew up in West Barnstable, Cape Cod Bay. I have 2 sisters, 4 brothers, a mother and a father, and 2 cats. So I have a big family, 9 people. I am mostly known for my famous plays and books that I wrote. But more importantly, I am the reason the Continental Congress happened. Let me tell you why. I live in 1 Liberty Square, aka my house, aka the place where the idea for the Continental Congress was first planned. My husband, James Warren, worked in the government as a politician, so of course he had to be involved in the event. I was thrilled to hear the great news. In my family of 9, my father was a lawyer, and I loved to hear about his job. I loved politics so much I wrote a whole book about it, but that's a different story. All my mom wanted me to do was get married and take care of my house, but that's not what I wanted. Because of my love of politics, I was so excited to host the 1 Liberty Square meetings and to be in the middle of such important conversations. I combined my love of politics with my love for writing and secretly wrote and published historical plays that made fun of the British. Most women would have stayed out of sight during this event, but not me. Overall, my plays were a public display of British unfair treatments, and they helped inspire patriots to fight stronger and better for freedom. I'm off to finish writing my newest book titled History of the Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution. Good day.
Even though I was only 13 when I became a spy, legend has it I helped save our general's life. Good morning. My name is Evie Francis. Listen closely because I'm going to tell you my story of how I became a spy. I became a spy because of my father, Samuel Francis, who owns the Queen's Head Tavern, a popular meeting place for many patriots and famous people like George Washington and John Adams. My father told me that I had to go on an important mission to save General Washington, armed with only one clue, that the person planning to kill him was his bodyguard and his first name started with a T. I started off on my mission. As soon as I heard mission, I was hooked. As I said before, I was only 13 years old when I had to save our beloved General George Washington. I guess you could say I've accomplished more than most 13-year-olds. I had to leave my family and move into the mortar house to become a spy disguised as a housekeeper. Every day at the mortar house, I would go down to the market to meet my father and tell him any news I had to share about who was planning to kill George Washington. I would serve the general and his bodyguard meals, clean the house, and listen closely when someone was whispering, waiting to hear anything about the plan. Sometimes I felt like I had too much work on my hands, but I knew I was really here to save George Washington and not become a housekeeper. I felt so determined to save him. One day, when I went to meet my father at the market, he looked very concerned and told me that the person trying to kill George Washington was going to do it in the next few days before he left. Once I heard this news, I was very frightened, but more determined than I had ever been before. One person in his bodyguard was especially kind to me and was named Mr. Hickey. He would often bring me some seeds for my chicken or even a stick of candy, too. One day was different. Mr. Hickey brought me fresh June peas for their general's dinner. Later, when I was in the kitchen serving food onto the plates, Mr. Hickey came in and asked which plate was his and which was the general's plate. I thought nothing of it at the time, but he had sprinkled poison on General Washington's plate. When I brought out the food, they asked who brought the June peas so early in the season, and I said Mr. Hickey. Then they replied, "Where is Mr. Thomas Hickey? I want to thank him." Immediately, I knew what had happened, so I threw the peas out the window, and the chickens who ate them immediately died. I told Pompey, my helper, to get my father. Thomas Hickey was later convicted of trying to kill George Washington and was hanged. If I had not saved General George Washington, we would have lost the Revolutionary War and not gained independence. But because of me becoming a spy and my father listening and hearing this news, we saved him. Overall, I played a very valuable role in the Revolutionary War because I saved our general. Good day. God bless America.
Cannonball, cannonball, watch out! Sorry, I thought I was still on the battlefield.
I should introduce myself. My name is Molly Pitcher, and I grew up in Pennsylvania. I'm a woman who made a big difference in the war. First, I left to go with my husband and help the Army. I felt sad to leave my home, but I wanted to go with my husband and help in any way I could. Off the battlefield, I helped by tending to injured soldiers. Now I will tell you about my participation on the battlefield, specifically during the Battle of Monmouth. First, my husband got hit by a cannonball. At that moment, I felt really scared. I had to help, so I took his position and started firing the cannon back at the British. When we got married, our daughter Val said for better or for worse, but I never imagined I'd one day fight a war for him. When he got hit, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let the British defeat our army, but I also had to help all the hurt soldiers. My real name is Mary Ludwig Hayes, but all the soldiers just said, Molly, pitcher, because Molly was a name for a woman, and they wanted my pitcher of water. After my heroic actions, George Washington was so impressed that he wanted to meet me. Additionally, a memorial was made in my honor. Undoubtedly, some of the soldiers would have lost their lives if it weren't for me. I received money like the men, which was significant because only 2 other women were compensated for their jobs during the war. Overall, I was essential to the Battle of Monmouth, and I showed women are just as capable as men.
Molly, pitcher!
Farewell, I have to go help that soldier.
Hi, I'm Samuel Adams, but you can call me Sam. I have an awesome story to tell you. I had a beautiful wife named Elizabeth Checkley, but sadly after a tragic pregnancy, she died. It was terrible. I was so sad and heartbroken. But then I saw her, Elizabeth Betsy Ross, standing there looking so... Oh, wait. I'm telling you the wrong story. Silly me. I should be telling you the story of the Sons of Liberty and the Boston Tea Party, not my love story. Yes, me, of course, was the organizer of the Sons of Liberty with some of my friends, one of them being my rich friend John Hancock, and Paul Revere, who saved my life. I organized the Sons of Liberty because I was so mad at the king for the tax he put on British goods. The Sons of Liberty did some fun things because we know how to have a good time. On August 13th, 1765, we hung a dummy with a picture of a British tax agent in a boot that we called, on a tree that we called the Liberty Tree. The next day, we threw stones through the windows of the tax agent's house, destroying their office. Later on in September 1765, I was elected to the Massachusetts Assembly, and I helped organize the October 1765 Stand Back to Congress, a meeting of representatives who joined together to oppose British taxes. I also helped organize the Boston Tea Party, and I dressed up as a Mohawk Native American. Also, I dumped tea into the Boston Harbor. This was a protest against King George's tax on tea. Nobody tells me what type of tea I must buy. And I must say, dumping the tea was really fun. It felt so good to get back on the king. America was way better off to be alive to help because I did so many things. Like I organized the Sons of Liberty and the Boston Tea Party. In addition, I represented Massachusetts in the First Continental Congress, as well as the Second. Farewell, and off to my dad's brewery.
Good morning, Patriots. I am Patience Lovell Wright, a spy and a sculptor. You know, women are always the best at multitasking. I will let you know my fascinating story, but you must promise not to tell King George. He already suspects me. I set up my sculpting business in London in 1772, and I was invited to sculpt many famous people. I was invited to Buckingham Palace because Benjamin Franklin, one of my good friends, was representing the American colonies in London. Well, that's when it gets interesting. When I was sculpting King George and Queen Charlotte and other important people, I would often chat with them about the war. I found that I could give false information that they would quickly correct. Then I would send my sister Rachel the information in the head of a wax bust. And let me tell you, those letters were valuable. They included numbers of soldiers coming from Britain, weapons, and areas of target. But my information wasn't always accurate because the king started to suspect me of spying. So he started to give me false information. But it was all fine in the end because a lot of my information was accurate. and helped the colonies beat the British. Undoubtedly, I pulled off the dangerous work of spying on the king. Because of me, the Continental Army gained valuable information about the enemy. I never intended to become a spy, but I was certainly good at it. Long live America's independence. My name is Betsy Ross. I believe most of you know me because of the American flag. But have you ever wondered how I was chosen? Now, I know that my flag is the best because General Washington told me so. To prove that, listen to my story. It all started when I was an assistant in an upholstery shop. I was raised in a Quaker family too. My parents thought I had very nimble fingers and I could sew. Later in my life, I married John Ross. Since we eloped, I couldn't be an assistant in an upholstery shop anymore. So we decided to start our own upholstery shop. A sign hung in front of our shop and it said, John Ross Upholstery Shop. Then, John died because he got hurt on a battleship. After that, I changed my sign to my name instead of his. I was nervous that I couldn't run the business on my own, but I persevered. One nice day in my shop, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, I saw General Washington. He asked me if I could make the flag, and of course, I said yes. When the committee confirmed my flag, I asked for some edits. I told them to make the stars 5-pointed instead of a 6. A 5-pointed star is much more efficient and faster to sew. Look carefully as I show you at the 5-pointed star that I made earlier. Also, the flag was too square, so I made it wider. Now do you see that my flag is the best? I bet everyone knows, even the men out there, women know best. Overall, the flag was important in our freedom because it represented the 13 colonies as one united nation. Farewell, I'm off to make more flags.
Traitors! You might know me for being the king of the biggest empire of the world. Yes, it's King George III, and I'm here to talk about my unfair taxes. Whatever, and I'm very reasonable about my taxes, so I have no idea what you're talking about. First, one of my taxes that you said was unfair was the Sugar Act of 1764. I enacted the Sugar Act because you wanted more land. So I fought for you in the French and Indian War. After the war, I had lots of debts to pay. It is only fair that you help me pay that debt. Besides, I actually lowered it from 6 pence per gallon to 3 pence per gallon. All I asked from you colonists was that you pay the tax and you follow the law. Then I protected you from going past the Ohio River Valley because people were getting killed there and I didn't want you to get killed. To ensure your protection, I sent the British troops. The Quartering Act was simply put into place for your benefit. The British soldiers were there to make sure you were safe, and all you had to do in return was show some hospitality. Another tax that you boast was unfair was the Stamp Act of 1765. I put the Stamp Act into place because we needed money for our soldiers, so we made you pay a little extra money. I still don't get why you're mad at me. The soldiers were there for you, remember? The last unfair tax we will talk about today is the tea tax of 1773. The tea tax became a law because if I stopped taxing you colonists, I would have never had the power to tax you again. You've never been a king. You wouldn't understand. Instead, you responded by dressing up as Mohawk Native Americans and dumping all that precious tea into the Boston Harbor.
And don't even get me started on the behavior of the Sons of Liberty, more like Sons of Liability. Tarring and feathering the customs official who collects your taxes? You really hurt him. You rebels cause so many problems and really think you can run your own country and deserve freedom? Finally, I want to make it clear that I couldn't have made these taxes by myself. The British Parliament had to approve them, so they are fair. Personally, I think I'm a great king, and you should really consider how great you have it with me as your ruler. Farewell, I am off to go brainstorm some more taxes for you colonists.